Welcome to the May 23rd, 2022 West Clermont Local School District Board meeting. I would like to make a recommendation to the order. Sorry.
Roll call.
Roll call, Mr. Romano can't talk.
Okay, Mr. Rudy.
Yes.
Mrs. Delaney.
Yes.
Mrs. Brinkman.
Present.
Mr. Chumley.
Present.
Mr. Patton.
Present.
All present?
Thank you. I'd like to recommend that we withdraw to executive session for the purpose of considering the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, compensation of, or investigation of charges or complaints against a public employee, and to consider the sale of property at competitive bidding, and to consider matters required to be kept confidential by federal law or regulations or state statutes, and to discuss details relative to the security arrangements and emergency response protocols for the Board of Election. Is there a motion?
I make a motion. Second.
Mr. Patton, a second.
Second.
Oh,
No,
okay.
no, Mr. Patton.
Mr.
moved.
Patton made the motion.
Mr.
Mr.
Chumley,
Chumley
second.
second.
Got it.
Okay. Any discussion? Mr. Romano, roll call.
Mr. Patton.
Yes.
Mr. Chumley.
Yes.
Mr. Rudy.
Yes.
Mrs. Delaney.
Yes.
Mrs. Brinkman.
Yes.
5 yes.
We will return after the executive session. We are now returning from executive session. Mr. Romano, could you please take roll?
Mr. Rudy.
Yes.
Mrs. Delaney.
Present.
Mrs. Brinkman.
Present.
Mr. Chumley.
Present.
Mr. Patton.
Present.
All present?
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, I believe we have some recognition this evening, Mrs. Adams.
We do. Where is Shane? He's got, oh, you're up first. Yeah, just start rolling. Volunteers of the Year. So Clough Pike, you're on deck. Thanks.
All right, I get to lead off tonight, so appreciate it. It is my distinct pleasure to announce Amanda Hood as our Volunteer of the Year. Amanda Hood has been part of our PTA for the past 9 years. She has been president for the last 4 years, and there is not an event that goes on at our school that she doesn't touch, manage, or organize. So behind every wonderful person is a wonderful team, and she has brought a large contingency with her tonight to cheer her on, and it always takes a village. So anytime you see Amanda at our building, you see Matt, you see Maven, her son. So it is a family affair when they come to volunteer, or if they're setting up PTA events or whatever seems to be going on. She is also our wonderful 775 secretary as well. So we are hoping to keep her around our building for a long time. So I know Maven is planning to go to the middle school eventually, but I would like to retain him in 3rd grade as long as possible to keep Amanda in my building.
He's
So
going to be the principal, Amelia, I think.
he will. He's always dressed for it and ready to go. So I want to thank Amanda for all that she does, and we truly appreciate her, Amelia. Thank you.
Hey, Ellie.
Are we going to just have them wait here and just do it one time, or are we
Sure,
going to?
that'll work.
Yeah.
Well, good evening, folks. Hello, hello. This is Mr. Eric Daniels from Clough Pike. He does pretty much everything related to PTO. He's fantastic. For example, this morning I got there early for field day, and he beat me even there. So he's waiting on the bench up front with A1 Entertainment to set up the bouncy house. So he was our ride operator for the bouncy house today. Also, he's a knack for photography. So anytime you see Clough PTO event photos out there, probably this is the guy behind the camera. He's also married to our PTO treasurer, Ms. Daniels, back there. They're much like the crew from Amelia. Anytime there's an event and the Daniels show up, you get a crew of help. And he's just willingness to fill in wherever. So Kevin and I were talking about who's our volunteer for the year, and we looked at each other and we're like, Eric. Eric's the guy. So there he is. Okay.
Good evening. This is Miss Kim Fendi, and actually she's a new family to the district and to Holly Hill, and she jumped right in. She joined our PTO team. She has been one of our weekly library volunteers that reshelf the books and take care of our students as they're checking out books. And she even worked with a big project with our 3rd graders. We did like little, what were they called, like bobblehead biography things, and God love her, every time I saw her in the library, she's like putting little heads on water bottles for the kids. So it was amazing. And she also has done some mental health awareness with our staff for free, and like came in and done some activities with them. So we are so thankful as a new family member, just jumping right in as part of the Holly Hill Husky team. So thanks, Kim.
Good evening. I am not Thad Highball, as you can as you can tell. Unfortunately, he was not able to be here. Yes, but I was getting ready to get you. I was going to come drag you from your seat. So I'm the stand-in instead. So my apologies that you get me and not Mr. Highball. So this is Mrs. Chapman, and she is the Volunteer of the Year from Irwin. She serves currently as the Vice President of the PTO, and that in and of itself is like deserving of, honors. But, oh, okay, so the recording secretary, apparently. This says Vice President, so I'm just going off of what I know here. Even so, I would say that that deserves awards in and of itself. But she does whatever she can to support students at Merwin, and some of those things have included, we heard from Holly Hill, the same thing, support for our libraries, which is a tremendous job. We unfortunately do not have librarians or media specialists in our libraries, and literacy is so important and near and dear to our heart, and so we're so grateful for all she does to help make books accessible to our students. That she helps to organize fundraisers, other just unique opportunities for Merwin students. Whatever it is that there is a need for, like, she finds a way to get something done. And we're just so grateful for her support and effort and just her willingness to go above and beyond for the students at Merwin. So thank you so much.
It is my privilege to get to honor Mrs. Amber Shivesta tonight. She is our PTO president and has served in many roles on our PTO throughout the last 8 years. At one point at Brantner Elementary, she served all roles. So president, vice president, treasurer, secretary, for the most part, everything, and extraordinaire. It wouldn't be an event without Mrs. Shivesta and her family. I know we've heard from quite a few others in that same regard that we're very fortunate because when Amber signs up to do something, she's taught her family and her children that service first comes hand in hand. And truly they show up in full force with all heart and attention to detail. And creative flair definitely comes forward when Teacher Appreciation Week comes out each year. Mrs. Shivesta takes it to the next level and truly just does that extra step to make sure that our teachers and staff feel loved, appreciated, and we hope that you feel loved and appreciated too. Thank you for all you do.
Come on up here, Amber. Welcome. It's my pleasure to represent Willowville tonight as we honor Amber Plyman. She is our Volunteer of the Year, and she's also our PTO president. She does a great job of organizing, managing, setting up events at the school. Events such as the Carnival, the Father-Daughter Dance, the Walkathon, Breakfast with Santa. Our school is truly a hub for our community. She's given hundreds of hours to our school and to our community. Matter of fact, today she was there 8 hours. I always joke with her, she needs her own office. I might have to work that out. But in addition to all that, she comes and she reads with our students. She reads, and so she is truly part of our school community. We are grateful for her and all that she does for Willowville. So thank you, Mrs. Amber Plyman. Great job.
It is with my just absolute privilege and joy to recognize Mrs. Melissa Hess as WT's Volunteer of the Year. She has served as a volunteer, PTO currently, a couple more days, right, as president, and a board member, and an active parent. Not only this year, but for the past 6 years since her current fifth graders started at WT. Mrs. Hess is forward-thinking. She loves our students and teachers, and she exhibits great intention in serving our school community. In 3 words, Mrs. Hess is love in motion. Congratulations.
Good evening. We are very excited to honor tonight Mrs. Laura Coas, who is our Volunteer of the Year at the middle school. We are so grateful, as all of the volunteers here tonight. Our school's run because of people like Laura. If there's anything that we need, she steps in within moments. She must be working from her car all the time because she's always like there as soon as we need her. Everything from serving in our PTO, supporting our student events, but also really helping our students understand the importance of giving back to others. She's partnered with our Wolves Give Back program. She helped initiate a coat drive along with her daughter this year. She works on beautification projects at the middle school. So really anything that you can see a person do, she does. We're so grateful to have called her ours the last 3 years. And we're so sad to let her go next year to the high school. But we're sure she'll be back to help us with some things. But so grateful to you, Laura, for everything that you've done for us.
What's your name? This is Teresa Stone, if you don't know her. She has been in high school now with me for 5 years now. We've been working together about. Teresa has done so much for the high school. Craft show. Talk about the craft show. Started that way back when, and Teresa taught me a lot about how to get things approved and how not to get things approved. And we went through many, many processes to finally bring the craft show. So one of the things that Teresa does for us is helps with our scholarships. So we talked today and we figured out through her efforts over $80,000 have been raised through the craft show and all the things that she does for us. She works with our teachers, Teacher Appreciation Week. After prom was added to it this year, so you know how much goes into that as well. So she has just been a tremendous asset, and she is retiring this year. But she has brought so much to the high school that I'm sure she'll be back and will help Greg.
She's saying no.
You will. You'll miss us. And so, but we couldn't do it without her, and so many kids have benefited from all of her volunteered hours, the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours that she's put into high school. So we want to thank her tonight.
Well, volunteers, I just want to say on behalf of all of us in West Clermont, we are just so thankful for the hours that you spend. I mean, it really goes back to 2020 when we had to pivot how volunteering even looked like. And you guys, we've had several setbacks this year and things we had to change and postpone, and you had to twist and turn with all of us. And you've been there every step of the way. So we are grateful to you to be role models and to elevate volunteerism in West Clermont, because we know we can't do without you. And just thank you for the example and all the time that you've spent with kids beyond your own to invest in our school district. We're grateful. So take a moment now to be recognized by all the board members by walking up here and shaking their hands. Another round of applause for all of the volunteers.
No, I'm afraid of her. After we
finish this award-winning celebration, we will take a pause and go out and enjoy receptions, but you guys are welcome to help yourselves. We'll all join you eventually. Up next, we're going to update the Purple Star School Designation Award and by Chuck LaFada, because I know this is a topic close to his heart.
Good evening. As you may recall, the Board of Education passed a resolution a few months ago to show support of military families and children. At that time, we shared that multiple schools were applying to be designated as Ohio Department of Education Purple Star schools. I'm pleased to report that 4 schools in West Clermont have passed and have earned that status: Amelia Elementary, Merwin, Willowville, and West Clermont Middle School. They are 4 schools of 94 new schools to be awarded this year, bringing a total to 436 schools in Ohio. The purpose of this award is it recognizes schools that show a major commitment to students and families connected with our nation's military. Schools that earn this award will receive a special Purple Star recognition to be displayed on the site, which we have tonight. So congratulations to the schools.
David Foltz will be bringing our Master Teacher recognition.
Good evening. Master Teacher demonstrates excellence inside and outside of the classroom through consistent leadership and focused collaboration to maximize student learning. A Master Teacher strives for distinguished teaching and continued professional growth as specified by the Ohio Standards for the Teaching Profession. A Master Teacher demonstrates consistent leadership, focused collaboration with educators, students, families, and community, distinguished teaching focus in students and environment, distinguished teaching focus on content, instruction, and assessment, and continued professional growth and reflection. Before I ask our Master Teachers to come up this year, I would like to take a moment to recognize our Master Teacher Committee. Kim Sears is our committee chair, and she'll be helping me hand out the certificates this evening. Rena Ford and Barb Kenny is also on the committee, and then Sue Lippman Hall is in the back there. She is also on the committee as our admin rep. The following have achieved or received their Master Teacher status during this school year. So first, it's a first-timer with us, Shannon Collins. If you could come up, Shannon. She's a preschool teacher at Willowville. She was successful in meeting the necessary requirements for her to be recognized as a Master Teacher by the Board of Education.
Nice.
All right. Thank you, Shannon. Next, I would like to recognize a renewal. Tricia Moore, the science teacher at West Clermont Middle School. She was successful in meeting the necessary criteria to renew her Master Teacher status for the next 5 years. And finally tonight, we have Lisa Hughes, a 4th grade teacher at Merwin. She was successful in meeting the necessary criteria to renew her Master's Teacher status for the next 5 years. She is not here this evening. So we will make sure that she gets that award. So if we give her one more round of applause.
This is especially notable in a year like we just had, for you to go the extra mile and focus on your professional development. So congratulations.
Good evening. Tonight, I have the privilege of honoring Molly Coas, an 8th grader at West Clermont Middle School, as she was recognized for the Up and Over Youth Leadership Award from the Clermont County Chamber of Commerce Foundation, and was recognized at this recent Salute the Leaders event that we attended. Molly is the youngest person to date to win this award. She is a student volunteer and a representative for the PTSO, and she's been there to help organize and to deliver each program all year. She helped found the Wolves Give Back Club and collected 55 coats for children in need, and chaired a candy drive for PTSO, and sent hundreds of pounds of candy overseas via the Yellow Ribbon Support Center. And I just saw Molly in the Media Center this week, helping Mrs. Vonderheide organize the end of the year books and everything else. She's also a web leader. And then Mrs. Bassler says this about Molly. When thinking about Molly's extracurricular activities, Molly helps. That's her gift. She's just there to put in her time and help people. She does this without recognition or seeking special attention or accolades. She is so mature and steps up and offers help wherever she is needed. She's a type of community member and a young lady West Clermont can be proud to call her own. And at the Salute the Leaders event, there was someone from the Kiwanis that was like hunting her down and made sure I gave the card to her so she can volunteer next year with the Key Club at the high school. And honestly, she gets it naturally from her mother too, who was honored tonight as a Volunteer of the Year. So Molly, congratulations on this wonderful award you just received from the Clermont County Chamber of Commerce. Next, we have Mrs. Linda Mijas. She was also recognized at the Clermont County Chamber Salute to Leaders event as the Career Prep Educator Award of the Year. This is the first year for this award, and you should feel honored that you were the inaugural winner of it. That's awesome. Linda has served as the College and Career Counselor for West Clermont High School since her return in 2018. And honestly, she was one of the first people that I got to work closely with since 2018 at the high school. Linda has been a driving force in our WC Your Future initiatives. She has been instrumental in developing partnerships with companies like Mercy Health, American Modern, Tata Consultancy Services, and TQL to provide opportunities for our students to have career-based learning experiences. Through that work, she has changed the trajectory of so many kids' lives. And I have story after story that gives me goosebumps of the impact that she has made on our students. She also was an integral part of bringing the job fair to our students at West Clermont High School. There were over 30 employers that almost every student in our high school got to interact with, and everyone there just was so impressed with our students and the organization of the event. So, thank you, Linda. Linda will be retiring at the end of this year as well for the second time, right? And we wish you well in all that you do, and thank you for the impact that you made here at West Clermont. Oh, we have one more?
Well, they can go, and then we'll yeah, they can go, because they're both Salute to Leader people.
Okay.
It's a theme. Keeps us moving.
Come on up. This is Amy Euchre. She's being recognized for receiving the School Nutrition Association Mid-East Manager of the Year. This award is given to school nutrition managers for their contributions that they have made throughout their school nutrition careers. Amy is a valuable and valued member of the child nutrition team. She is motivated and is a people-first manager who's always thinking of ways to improve service for students and staff alike. So Amy and I came in together 5 years ago, and how far we've come. So our goal day one was to make sure everyone got to school, everyone got fed, and everyone got home. And it was a monumental task because we didn't have any idea if we could even fit everybody in the cafeteria. So through our 5 years of working together, I can't tell you what a tremendous asset she's been to me as a high school principal. When you're working with the cafeteria manager, there are a lot of things that come along and change the schedules, and those principals never think about food and things like that, and all of a sudden we change schedules, and she has just had a smile on her face every time we've had to, well, almost every time we've had to change the schedule, but she's worked with us in those first 5 years that we've been together. I tell you what, I can say this, in 5 years, I've not had one complaint, email about the food in the cafeteria. Now, you tell me how that happens without having a successful manager. So she has done an excellent job. She's going to be moving on as well in your new position. It's here somewhere. Tell me again. Field supervisor. So she's still with the district, and she's going to be a field supervisor for us if approved tonight by you guys. So congratulations on Manager of the Year. I can't tell you what an asset she's been at the high school, and we wish her the best in her new position.
I'd just like to add something about Amy. When the dietary restrictions came out, I guess from Mrs. Obama, when they were put into place, Amy felt really bad and did her very best when I worked with her at Amelia High School to make the food more edible, and I always appreciated that. She didn't do anything she wasn't supposed to, but she had charm with macaroni and cheese with whole wheat pasta. I remember that. She could make it taste good.
I can
So
second that, yes.
We really appreciate you, Amy. Okay, would you like to, we'd like to take about a 10-minute pause to go out and socialize a little bit and partake of some of the cupcakes and cookies out in the lobby. Couldn't think of the word.
Let's
sorry.
celebrate.
Yes.
We'll take a little pause.
Okay, well, I'm looking for a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
All right, Mrs. Delaney, second.
Second.
Okay, Mrs. Brinkman, any discussion? Mr. Romano?
Mrs. Delaney,
Yes.
Mrs. Brinkman,
Yes.
Mr. Chumley.
Yes.
Mr. Patton,
Yes.
Mr. Rudy.
Yes.
5 yes.
Okay. Public commentary, do we have any cards?
We do not.
Okay. Consent agenda. Personnel.
Dr. Foltz will be
Okay.
sharing.
Good evening, members of the board, Mrs. Adams, Mr. Romano. In front of you is the personnel agenda for May 23rd, 2022. On the agenda today, we have the resignations of 11 teachers, 1 school psychologist, 1 assistant athletic director, and 2 classified staff. We also have the proposed hiring of Darren Stevens, our assistant principal at West Clermont Middle School. He is in the audience and will be meeting you a little later. Did I say middle school? High school, my apologies, West Clermont High School. Middle school on the brain. Also, the proposed hiring of 3 special education teachers, 1 school psychologist, 2 elementary gen ed teachers, 1 middle school teacher, 8 high school teachers, and 3 cafeteria workers. We also have the proposed hiring of Tracy Renner, the parent mentor for the 22-23 school year. She was in that role this past year and did a great job. On this agenda, we have the proposed transfer and reassignment of Roger Thornburg, moving from maintenance supervisor to district operations project manager, from David Mark Hall, from assistant maintenance supervisor to maintenance supervisor. And then you met Amy Eckert a little earlier, high school cafeteria manager to our child nutrition field supervisor. So I'm very excited to see her moving up as well in our district. This is the agenda where we bring staff forward for contract placement and renewals for the next school year. Included in this agenda is the proposed placement of 10 limited contract teachers moving to continuing contracts, so we're excited about that as well. Administrator placement on the existing salary schedules, non-certified exempt staff placement on the existing salary schedules, classified contract renewals moving from 1 year to a 2-year or to their next 2-year renewal, as well as classified exempt staff contract renewals moving from a 1-year to a 2-year renewal or their second 2-year renewal. We also have extended days for those certified positions that need additional time at the beginning and ending of the school to wrap up their student support work. We have contract renewal for all teachers on the limited contract, and then renewal of our part-time paraprofessional aides. Included in this agenda is also proposed approval for 4 of our student summer workers that typically works with technology over the summer, getting all of our tech up and running for August. We have the proposed approval for supplemental contracts for we have home tutors on to finish this year and over the summer, and then home tutors for the next school year, athletic contest workers, and multiple coaches moving into the fall and winter of 2023. This agenda is included in this agenda is the proposed approval for requested unpaid leaves of absence, hiring of classified substitutes, and multiple school and student volunteers. Finally, we have a new section called Work Beyond the Contract. This is where we will be placing the description of work and the individuals engaging in that work, which typically fell on the stipend lists from before. Included in this agenda are the proposed approval for the following: outdoor education student support stipends, West Clermont Middle School schedule design stipends, extended school year instruction for students with disability stipend, extended learning scope of work for stipends, and the West Clermont Middle School special education unit redesign scope of work for stipends. So this concludes the review of the personnel agenda submission for your consideration.
Any questions?
I do, Ms. Adams. Dr. Foltz, my question is, this agenda and the previous board meeting that we had, there seems to be a lot of teachers that are resigning, that are leaving. Can you help shed some light why we have, in the time when we need to keep, what's going on?
Absolutely. So I think if you think about this from a macro level first, in 2008, for every 1 position we had 6 people to fill it. And now for every 1 position we have 0.6 people to fill it. So there aren't as many people going into public education at the university, so they're not coming out of public education coming out of the universities to become teachers. So there's a shortage there. And then our private industry is pilfering our staff. Our teachers are coming out, they know that they're educated, they're trainable, they think outside the box. We put a lot of vested time and interest in making them, not making them, but growing them to think creatively, innovatively, and so all of a sudden they look very attractive to the private sector, and that's a new wrinkle that really hasn't been there in education before. So if you take the fact that as enrollment increases, more kids come, you need more teachers, while at the same time universities are not producing the teachers, then we're seeing this gap of teacher shortage. And I think this is the first year of at least the next 4 to 5 years so that we're going to see this phenomenon occurring. Part of what we have to do is try to hold on to our staff as best we can through, we use financial incentives, we use cultural incentives, we grow them differently, we look at them differently, we train them differently. I can say, if you look at trend data back in 16, 17, we were in the double digits with people turnover in terms of double digits percentages in turnover. We worked really hard the last couple of years of getting that down to single digits, from 7 to 6 to 5. Last year and more this year, we're looking at about an 8% turnover. And I think a lot of that is happening because of the current situation that we're in. Looking at reasoning, part of what I do is I dive into we have everyone do a exit survey over the last 4 years. And so then I dive into that data and try to figure out why they're really leaving. There's a chunk that are retiring. This year alone, we have 25% of our teacher turnover rate is due to retirement. Another big chunk of that, 39%, is really family factors or consideration that may be outside of our influence. So they're moving out of the area, they're moving closer to where they physically live and going to those districts. Childcare or medical reasons, they're staying home, or they left the profession altogether. So 13% in the 2021, 13% of this group talked about better salary or better position. So we're constantly looking at that and trying to figure out how can we best support our teachers to have them stay. The best way to stop teacher shortages is to keep teachers employed with us. I think another aspect of that is that teachers that have specialized training, let's say special education teachers, for example, there's more openings because that's becoming a greater need in education itself. And so they become more attractive, and other districts can then try to attract them away from us as we will try to attract others back to us. So I think this is a growing trend that we're going to see in public education. I think it affects us locally, but I also think that this is occurring across the state of Ohio. And so what we have to get better at and what we are trying to do is think of innovative ways to keep them and innovative ways to get people back into education, or get people going into education, then wanting to come back locally and work in their hometown. So we're continuing to monitor this. We're going to continue to collect the data and continue to find ways to innovate to stay this tide that seems to be affecting everybody.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next, we have an overnight field trip request. Mrs. Preston's going to bring that.
Good evening. Tonight I'm requesting approval for an overnight field trip for the girls' basketball team. They have the opportunity to attend what's called the Best of Ohio. It's hosted at Reynoldsburg High School, and it's an event designed to help just continue to build exposure for our girls' basketball team, to give them opportunities to play on kind of a larger stage with others who will just help to build awareness of our program. This field trip is for one night. It's the night of June 11th. June 11th and 12th are the days of the tournament or the event. So I'm requesting approval for that as part of the consent agenda. Are there any questions? Great, thank you.
Mr. Overby's going to bring 7.03, the OHSAA membership resolution.
Hello again. This is an annual resolution that we bring to the Board of Education for West Clermont High School and West Clermont Middle School to be voluntary members of the Ohio High School Athletic Association. By doing so, as part of the resolution, we agree to follow the Constitution, bylaws, regulations, and business rules of the OHSAA. So this is something we do around this time each year.
Yep.
Item 7.04 is approval of the minutes. Those minutes are for the meeting that was held on April 18th, as presented. Item 7.05 is request for approval of the minutes for the meeting that was held on May 9th, minutes as presented. Item 7.06, and there is, that is for our donations, and there is a significant list. We have 19 donors, and if it would be okay with the board, I don't want to read the whole thing, but if I could at least read the names of those donors so that we have that. First is from the Ohio State University Extension at Clermont County. Second is from Solid Rock Church. Third is from West Clermont High School PTSO. Fourth is from RJ Cinema. Fifth is from Withamsville Church of God. The next is Amelia Elementary. And I'm sorry, they received a donation, and that was from a parent of the student at Janet Carter's classroom, so it's anonymous there. Next is from Bricker and Eckler. Next is from Skyline Eastgate, Eastgate Shakes, Skyline Chili Cherry Grove, Big B Coffee, Starlight Drive-In, Cat Eaton, Mercy Health, Midtown Health, Allison Taylor State Farm, Ross Store, KPMG Family for Literacy, and then from Summerside PTO. So there was quite a bit of activity of donations for different events that were held at our schools and throughout the district. So the request at 7.06 is that the board do accept those donations. Item 7.07 are contracts. There are two listed. The first is for Sedgwick Managed Care. That is, they provide services and have been providing services both for our workers' compensation and unemployment. And that is for the next school year, September 1st of 22 through August 31st. And the second request for contract service is for Peterman LTD. As you recall, there was a request for proposal that was asked a few months back. We did only receive one proposal, and that was from Peterman. That's for student transportation services. I will let you know that just because there was only one, that doesn't mean that we don't do our due diligence. Mr. LaFada and myself did sit with them, review that contract. We actually had some items for them to get back with us. So as pending with this resolution, it's really requesting authorization to contract with them as we get some of those answers back. That contract is for the initial period from July of 22 through June 30th of 25. And then there's a provision to extend that term from July of 25 through June 30th of 28. The first year estimated cost, and it is estimated because the provisions are based on services delivered, but the estimated cost on that first year is $7,267,933. So item 7.07 would be for the request to authorize the superintendent and treasurer to execute those agreements for district services. Item 7.8 is the financial statements, bills paid list, and the investments. Those are for the period ending April 30th, the previous month. So the consent, if there's any questions on those. The consent agenda then is for items 7.01 through 7.08.
Okay, you've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
Dr. Foltz already answered the one question for me. The other two is the donations. I do appreciate the people who do give donations. Obviously, donations are very helpful. They're very useful. And so I do appreciate, again, that whole list that Mr. Romano said. I do appreciate all of those donations that they gave.
And you'll be sending a thank you note to each of them?
We do.
Perfect, thanks.
We do that.
Anything else? Okay, Mr. Romano?
Mr. Chumley?
Yes.
Mrs. Delaney?
Yes.
Mrs. Brinkman?
Yes.
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mr. Rudy?
Yes.
5 yes.
Okay, superintendent's business?
Mr. Overby is going to bring our second reading of policy and revisions and then a new adoption this evening.
Good evening. Item 8.01 is the second reading of 11 policy revisions that are included that include updates in areas of employment of administrators, College Credit Plus program, blended learning, use of medications, weapons, grant funds, cost principles, procurement, use of credit cards, weapons, again, and a different policy in food services. These policy revisions are necessary to reflect current Ohio law, to remain consistent with other policies, new federal guidelines, especially with the use of our ESSER funds and Ohio Supreme Court rulings and current district practice. The first reading was at our late April meeting, so the superintendent recommends to approve the revised policies as presented.
Okay, you've heard the recommendations, our motion.
So moved.
Mrs. Delaney is second.
I'll second.
Mr. Patton, any discussion? All those in favor? Oh, no, sorry. Wrong order.
Mrs. Delaney?
Yes.
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mr. Rudy?
Yes.
Mrs. Brinkman?
Yes.
Mr. Chumley?
Yes.
5 yes.
So item 8.02 is, in the agenda, there are two draft policies, 1439 and policy 4439 holidays, which are new to our policies. This policy addition is in response to Senate Bill 11, which is effective June 10th, 2022, which makes specific corrections to Ohio Revised Code 3319.087 regarding paid holidays for all regular non-teaching school employees. As enacted in 2021, House Bill 110 called for Juneteenth to be a mandatory holiday for 9 and 10-month regular non-teaching school employees, but did not include 11 and 12-month employees. Citing a drafting error in the legislation, the General Assembly corrected the statute to provide Juneteenth as a paid holiday for all 11 and 12-month regular non-teaching employees. There will be a recommendation to approve policy 4439 to cover non-teaching employees who work 11 or 12 months per year and are not part of the bargaining unit to comply with the new Ohio Revised Code. We also are recommending through policy 1439 that we add Juneteenth as a paid holiday for 11 and 12-month administrators. Due to the law's effective date of June 10th, 2022, the superintendent recommends waiving of the first reading and the approval of policies 1439 and 4439 as presented.
You've heard the recommendations, our motion.
So moved.
Mr. Patton.
Ms. Brinkman, and I'll second it.
Mrs. Brinkman is second from Mr. Patton. Any discussion? Okay, Ms. Romano?
Mrs. Brinkman?
Yes.
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mr. Rudy?
Yes.
Mr. Chumley?
Yes.
Mrs. Delaney?
Yes.
5 yes.
And Dr. Fultz is going to bring some MOUs, some memorandum of understandings, several with our bargaining agreements,
Yes.
our units.
So the following, we have 5 memorandums of understanding on the board agenda today. 4 of them are renewals that we had prior to the last collective bargaining agreement. One of them will be Juneteenth. So if we look at 8.03, the supplemental salary, it suffered no reduction. This was a previous supplemental salary structure. This was when the previous supplemental salary structure was adopted, a handful of our coaches fell outside the new structure. So the MOU in essence grandfathered them in until such time the supplemental schedule catches up with them or they resign from that supplemental position. So do we want to take each one of these individually? Okay. So I'm recommending that the board approve supplemental salary, suffer no reduction MOU as presented.
You've heard the recommendations, our motion.
So moved.
Mr. Chumley is second.
Second.
Mrs. Delaney, discussion. Mr. Romano?
Mr. Chumley?
Yes.
Mrs. Delaney?
Yes.
Mrs. Brinkman?
Yes.
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mr. Rudy?
Yes.
5 yes.
8.04 supplemental salary, West Clermont High School competitive cheer and dance coach. This position was not originally on the list when the supplemental salary structure was adopted. We need to renew our MOU until we can include it to the next collective bargaining agreement update. So this is presented for your consideration.
You've heard the recommendations, our motion.
So moved.
Mrs. Brinkman is second.
Second.
Mrs. Delaney, any discussion? Mr. Romano?
Mrs. Brinkman?
Yes.
Mrs. Delaney?
Yes.
Mr. Chumley?
Yes.
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mr. Rudy?
Yes.
5 yes.
Number 8.05, supplemental salary, West Clermont Middle School swim coach. While this position was included in the supplemental structure, how the positions were titled and the amount assigned to the positions have been adjusted. We need to renew our MOU until we can include it in our next collective bargaining agreement update. Please accept the recommendation to approve this MOU as presented.
You've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Mrs. Delaney, a second.
Second.
Mr. Chumley. Any discussion? Okay, Mr. Romano?
Mrs. Delaney,
Yes.
Mr. Chumley,
Yes.
Mr. Patton,
Yes.
Mr. Rudy,
Yes.
Mrs. Brinkman.
Yes.
5 yes.
8.06, Mr. Overby spoke about the Juneteenth holiday and policy. This MOU, due to the recent change in the law establishing Juneteenth as an official holiday, this MOU allows the district to add Juneteenth to the collective bargaining agreement as an official paid holiday for our 11th and 12-month employees. I recommend that you accept this MOU as presented.
Okay, you've heard the recommendation. I'll put that on the floor in the form of a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, Mr. Patton, any discussion? Mr. Romano?
Mr. Rudy,
Yes.
Mr. Patton,
Yes.
Mrs. Delaney,
Yes.
Mrs. Brinkman,
Yes.
Mr. Chumley.
Yes.
5 yes.
Finally, 8.07 is the head custodian subpay. When head custodians are out, typically for an extended period of time, we use current building custodians to fill in for them, which requires an additional load of work for them. So this renewed MOU allows for appropriate compensation when this situation occurs. I recommend that you approve this MOU as presented.
You've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, Mr. Patton is second.
Second.
Mr. Chumley, any discussion? Mr. Romano?
Mr. Patton,
Yes.
Mr. Chumley,
Yes.
Mr. Rudy,
Yes.
Mrs. Delaney,
Yes.
Mrs. Brinkman.
Yes.
5 yes.
Thank you.
Feels like May in here today. It does. I think we're all getting a little slap happy. Mr. Overby is going to come forward just to share a few little comments before I get into more details.
Hello again. So, I think we all can admit that there have been some expected and unexpected challenges this school year. I have to say our entire staff has done an amazing job navigating some uncharted waters. Our staff shows up each day ready to do whatever it takes for our students and each other. In many ways, we have thrived this year tackling sub-shortages, a new information system and data system, a new math course of study being developed, increased cybersecurity efforts. We participated in student learning ecosystem cohorts, and we engaged the community in highly interactive ways. In March, through our surveys and other feedback, we recognized that our WC team was running out of steam. So we brainstormed some ways to bring a few moments of joy each week to our staff. There was lunch, energy bars, fruit, ice cream. I think that was the biggest hit. Like, I was at the middle school and they just ran to the freezer when Mrs. Combs put it in there. We offered t-shirts and drinks and bagels. And a lot of that was covered by some sponsors that I'll talk here in a second. We also implemented Take a Break Plan, which was highly popular. So we asked our staff to submit a Google form if they wanted a 2-hour break, and they could take a friend with them. And then we would go in and cover their classes for them. I had 7th graders right after lunch. It took a little bit. And this one student in there says, you know what you're doing, don't you? I said, yeah, it's been 27 years of working with teenagers, so that was the comment of the day. But we did that for our teaching staff, and then we also did that for our classified staff. So Mrs. Adams was a para. I worked in the cafeteria, which was a lot of fun. We had other people covering for campus coordinators, Mr. I being one of them. So I think it was much appreciated, and I'm hoping, honestly, that we can continue it again next year. But we could not do this alone, so I want to thank some of our sponsors that have pledged some funds for this. Forward Edge, Health Fitness, Mercy Health, Child Focus, Health Source of Ohio, Bricker and Eckler, Allison Taylor, State Farm, and thanks to Mr. Patton, Eastgate Shakes delivered a lot of cool drinks to many of our staff. So that's about almost $8,000 that has been pledged. Some of we recognize tonight. I would also like to thank our cabinet and the DLT and administrative assistants, especially Tina and Leslie Combs for helping coordinate this. It was a 2-month plan of getting our folks. I think we got a lot of thank yous, a lot of appreciation for the work. So And then finally, a sincere thank you to our staff. We have 3 more days of school left. We appreciate all of their efforts, showing up each day to do what's best for our students. So really a deep appreciation for the work that they did this year. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. I definitely wanted him to kind of give you guys an overview because with every message we sent out, we sent it on behalf of the administrators as well as the board, and we really did receive a lot of thank yous. And I think, you know, there's never going to be a banana or a milkshake or whatever that's going to like save the day, but I think celebrating one another and appreciating one another is so important in our culture. And we just got, everyone was just so spent and so tired and, you know, crispy around the edges that we needed a good way to end the year. And Mike Overby led that effort with the team, and it was much needed and much appreciated across our district. So thank you as well. And I just want to make sure you hear all those things that came in many forms of, you know, emails to us, plus walking up and down the hallways of our schools. A couple other things I just want to add to we underestimate so much all that we really do accomplish in a year. And I want to do a special shout out to the subs who stepped up. I don't know how in the world we would have made it through this year without the subs that raised their hand, many who made commitments to stay in buildings and show up every day at certain buildings. We had building subs, and then many that throughout the year, and especially in the spring, committed to stay in Clermont. And that just meant the world to us and helped us be able to finish this school year stronger. Another thing that we easily forget too is that at this time last year, we were planning summer school, the first ever summer school that was comprehensive. And so we have really just not taken our foot off the pedal in so long. And it was a huge success, summer school was. And then through taking everything that we learned, the team in the middle of this year advanced our efforts and built in an after-school programming from January to March. That was very timely in the middle of the school year to squeeze every bit of learning that we could into our students. And there's just so much to be proud of. Mike mentioned several things, but it's advancing our partnerships, advancing our technology, our use of data tools, our leadership skills, teachers in the classroom. Like West Clermont, we struggled this year. We had lots of struggle moments, but we didn't stop fighting. We didn't stop learning. We didn't stop growing. And so I'm just tremendously proud of everyone. And I'm just grateful for the staff that just keeps giving to our students. And I know the parents are thankful. And you know, even just tonight, recognizing the volunteers, you wouldn't believe some of the things that just the PTOs did for staff appreciation during that week. I mean, it was just incredible. And so they highly value our staff. And sometimes I know it doesn't feel that way, but we just get kudos all the time from parents recognizing our staff members. So certainly today is a day to celebrate, and we are looking forward to what time on Friday? Graduation. It's this week, yes. Centos, 7 o'clock, and we are certainly going to end in a big way. We'll be recognizing Tammy Brinkman's senior as her baby boy going to be walking across that stage, and many, many other seniors that we are so excited to celebrate. We are so happy to be back all together in one arena at one time, and you know, let the confetti cannons burst. You know, we're excited. So thank you again for your support of us and for helping us to support our teachers and staff in finishing this year strong. 2 other updates actually just one more. We have one more REACT that has gone out. It's a follow-up to the first REACT review. And so far, we have about 112 responses. And our hope is to take all the information that we get from this REACT and use it to plan our fall experiences. Because we do plan on scaling the engagement work that we started this spring. We've gotten a huge response and a renewed energy and thinking about the future. And so the REACT survey data, if you have time to fill that out, it would be just a great help to us. So that's it. Are there any questions for me? Okay. All right, so to the 5-year forecast.
Okay, 5-year forecast.
What we've been waiting for.
Okay.
Yes.
They're gonna- Okay. So the 5-year forecast, this is an update from the forecast that was originally done in November. So as the board knows, the 5-year forecast is presented for adoption 2 times a year. Once in November, which is kind of the original, that's when we add an extra year onto it, because we know the results of a fiscal year. And then in May, it is really updating that financial forecast. The presentation that I have is very similar to the one that we did in November. It's mainly what I want to do is just highlight some of the things that changed with it. I believe in the past, what I told you with the 5-year forecast is it is our best projection at some point in time of what we think the future is going to look like financially for the school district. We do a little look back of 3 years, we look at the current year, and then we project forward with it. It is a requirement that ODE and the Auditor of State's office does put upon the school district. The main reason is to have that oversight, to make sure that school districts are fiscally solvent and headed in that direction. If they see that a district is not, they have the responsibility to identify that district as being in fiscal distress to do that. So the forecast is really kind of going by the numbers. There's really an additional component of that. So you'll see that the forecast is made up of 2 things. One is a projection by major revenue categories, by major expense categories, and then, quite frankly, what's left over. What do we have to spend into the future to do that? But an important part of that forecast is the notes and assumptions section of it, with it. So that goes hand in hand with that. You really can't just look at that spreadsheet or that financial forecast without the notes as we go through it. As always, especially in a forecast like we did in November and the update that we are doing today, there's some recognition of appreciation primarily right now to the residents, and we keep going back to May of 2020, but that was that was really kind of landmark with the school district to approve that levy, to add the additional resources that were needed for this district. The employees who, through rounds of negotiations, understand the realities and take what they need. And then the Board of Education, superintendent, the administrative team for their leadership. One of the things that we've been looking forward with the 5-year forecast is that it's not just a separate document, that it is really starting to lay out a spending plan and pattern for the district, that as we go build our budgets, we build those within the reality that somewhere up the road, our cash balance starts to become depleting, okay? And the more we can look at that multiple years at a time, helps us to identify what happens. It's great to see that as I work with this administrative team, as requests are made, they know that I'm just not going to look at, and nor does the superintendent, but the team really looks at what's the impact of this year, but just as important, what's the impact 4 or 5 years down the road? Because when we had 1 year of cost, we spend that 1, 2, 3, 4 times before it comes off that balance somewhere up the road. So it's appreciative that the team really is looking in that sense on the 5-year forecast to do that. It's a planning tool for us. Again, we look at what's going on with it. So kind of a high-level overview right now of that. FY22 is actually the first year that we've had a full year of the 2020 levy collection. Our fiscal year is July 1 through June 30th. Taxes, local taxes are collected on the calendar year. So when the levy was approved in 2020, the first collection year was calendar 21 for that, okay? So we had half a collection in January through June 30th of 21, and then we had the other half of that first year of July 1 through December 31st. So this fiscal year, July 1 of 21 through June 30th of 22 is really one full year collection with that. You'll recall that last year, early last year, was the identification that because of the property values increased in 2020, the revaluation year, the sexennial appraisal update, that there was additional money, mainly because we are at the 20 mil floor. So when property values through revaluation increase, that does provide additional revenue to the district. That's been built in, and we're seeing that that is sustaining itself over time with that, okay? Our local revenues and our state revenues, I'll address this first too. There was a change in the state funding, House Bill 110, which created a new formula. What that really did for us in these earlier years of this new formula is put this school district under a guaranteed. In other words, we'll get the amount of money that we've got back in FY '21, and then it also guaranteed, that year was a guarantee which guaranteed what we got in 2019, FY '19. So we can say 21, but it really is pulling it all the way back to FY '19, which, when you think about that, our fiscal year '22, our fiscal year '23, from the state really did not provide any significant additional revenue to us. It kind of just did status quo going back to 2019. The big change in that on the forecast, and I just will be honest with you, the first 6 months of this year, we had a new funding formula, but we were accounting for it under the old rules. January 1, they gave us adjustments to make, and they said, here, now record it under the new rules, okay? I'm sure that's confusing to everybody out there, and it was also confusing to us, you know, in the office, okay? The big change in this forecast, if you sat down and compared November of '21 to May of '22, it is just the accounting of certain elements of that funding formula. No longer is the state giving us funding for charter schools and for Ed Choice vouchers and for other scholarships, okay? They're funding those things directly with those schools. So in essence, we don't get the money and then we have to deduct it as a tuition expense, okay? We are just being funded for the students that we serve. You'll see that between November and May forecast, the numbers will look different, but you'll also see that the bottom line is the same, okay? We are really trending the same way with that, to do that. So that you know, if you sit that side by side, you're saying, no, we got increased revenues. No, we really didn't, okay? There was just some fundamental changes on the way we account for some things. Bottom line with the state is we're still receiving funding that we received in 2019, okay, to do that. Goes forward. On the expense side, pretty much the same that we had. I think again, the real important thing as we look at this current budget year and we look forward with it, okay, that almost becomes a spending plan that we start developing our budgets under. We take very seriously the commitment that was made to the community, that we would not come back to the community for additional funding prior to '24, and we are on track to do that. You'll see that we have a positive balance through '26, okay, which is a good thing, but you'll also see that there is a trend that occurs where the expense total surpasses our revenue total, okay, which means that when revenues are greater than expenses, that's a surplus. When all of a sudden our expenses exceed our revenues, then we get into a deficit or a spending deficit position. And that starts to occur in 2 years to do that, okay? So that's something that we look at. It was great for me to see. I really appreciated Mr. Patton, Mrs. Delaney. We had a finance committee meeting, and it's always nice when the treasurer can sit by and all of a sudden the superintendent is starting to explain that spreadsheet and highlighting the very important numbers with it. So, and I think both of you saw that. Sometimes the treasurer has to convince other administrators of what the importance of it is, and I get to sit back and have the superintendent go ahead and relay that same message. So trust me, that is significant, okay? To be in this chair and have the superintendent, have the other administrators really understand that. That is really important, okay? So I do appreciate to do that. And I did appreciate both of you having that meeting with us last week to do that. What I really want to get to, and I'm going to skip through a little bit of this, okay? So I talked about the revenue and expenditures lines crossing, okay? That starts to occur in 23, 24, okay? Revenues are stair-stepped, okay? Revenues really, they don't follow a trend line of you know, a percentage increase. They follow a line that when there is injection of funding into your district, i.e. through passing a levy, through the revaluation, or through state funding, those are the big three, okay? Unless that happens, you know, revenues are kind of flat. Expenditures, on the other hand, follow a path of inflation, okay? You will see, and there's some into it, and it's kind of getting into a scary time. The price of gasoline has gone up from $3 to what, $4.50? If you bought gas in the last week or so, okay? Makes me a little bit nervous, okay? We've been talking about projections on our health care. Our health care rates, preliminary that we see for calendar '23, they're on a calendar year basis, aren't bad. They're a little bit, they're about 5.5% to 6%. We just had a meeting today with our healthcare consortium consultant, and if we were able to pull the curtain back or look around the corner, it's a little bit scary, okay? It's gonna catch up to us, okay? The people here that know healthcare know that that's coming, okay, with us to do that. Okay, so that expenditure line does follow inflation, and that's hitting everything, okay? I don't think anything is left uncovered with that, okay? Again, Mr. Penn, I think the first time you saw this, you were at the November meeting right after the election, okay, to do this. And I think one of the things you highlighted for me was understanding that there's that 2 days cash, that we want to maintain some funds on hand at the end of the fiscal year, okay? We're doing that, but then again, it starts going down as our cash gets eroded away. One of the big messages from the Fair School Funding Formula, kind of the retreatment of that accounting, what that really did was uncover something that's been there for quite a while. That our local community has been supporting the school district by 62% of our revenues, the state 37%. That is that's a change from the past, okay? It used to look like it was 55-45, I believe, okay? All right, so that's a big change. The other big concern is that if you look at that funding formula, the Fair School funding formula, we do not come out as big winners even if the formula is funded to the full extent. If you recall when the 2-year biennium for the state was adopted, the education formula was not fully funded. Okay, that's why we're at a guarantee. Although this may seem a little bit odd, we have about $1 million transitional guarantee that is being provided to us, which means that if the formula was fully funded, okay, if the state came and injected 10% more into the education line item budget of the whole state, we would go down. Others, 10% would be the average, so some would go up higher than that, some would go down lower. We would, in fact, by the fully funding that formula, lose money, okay? And I'll tell you how important that is to us up the road, okay, in doing that. So again, you see the shift or the more clarity on how we're being funded local versus state. On the expense side, our salary and benefits make up 73%. You'll see some districts go between 78 and 83%. Our budget is pretty close to that because don't forget we carve out transportation and we carve out our substitutes, which are through the county, okay? So there's two aspects that aren't in wages and benefits that would make that number higher if we were paying them directly, okay, to do that. So we are in line. It may seem like it's low, but it's really not, to do that. In the projections are built the increased cost from negotiations. There was an additional 1% both in FY, this current year, 23 and 24. And there are, the insurance benefit projections are built in, 6% this year and then 8% the year after that. And then it goes back down to 6. So we build in increases with that. That's an unknown to do that. This is probably what I want to focus on, okay? Uncertainties and challenges in that projection, okay? Especially with the operating expenses, okay? House Bill 110, it does not provide a substantial increase currently, nor will it in the future. The current funding model really has a guarantee for us now, but that may go by the wayside in the future. We currently have the ESSER funds that support us. That's allowed us to invest in our people, in our programs, and do some things, but we know that with the ESSER funds, that there's a cliff with that, right? That funding ends, and we need to spend all those dollars before September of '24. So that's coming to a conclusion. Wisely enough, the superintendent, the administration built the budget on that to make investments, okay, rather than to put that in things that may be ongoing cost, to do that. There are some things in that funding formula that now become restricted on how we spend it, okay? We do meet those restrictions, but in the past, most of the funding formula was open to spend as we want. Today, some of that has some restrictions that go along with it, to do that. The other thing that we need to look at is, you saw earlier presentations this year about our enrollment growth, okay? So in the projection, we built the staff that we knew was going to increase for '23, this coming year. Modest in '24, but we do know that if we get the student enrollment growth that's projected, that will cause a couple things to happen. Increased class size, the need for some additional staff depending upon the space that we have available. So even if we had the funding, even if we had the need to add staff, space limits what we can do with that, okay, as we go forward with that. So one of those major things we need to look at is that, and keep an eye on, is that enrollment growth, especially as we look at this next school year coming up, to do that. I was excited at the last board meeting, you guys saw that, and I mentioned that too, by the fact that Mrs. Preston and that team could come and tell us what they were doing with the curriculum adoption. They're starting a new curriculum adoption for next year, so that cycle is on its way. But I think the focus that we look at with our operating money that's built into this schedule is to go forward with those curriculum adoption cycles, okay? Math, science.
Literacy.
What is it?
Literacy.
Literacy, okay.
Well,
so
health too.
yeah, it's coming up. So those are in the program. You'll see that it's not clean cut, that it's going to be, everything's going to occur year by year, okay? It's going to overlap and be there. But it is built into our projections with that, okay? What's our call to action? Okay, you've heard that the superintendent and I are starting to have some meetings with local representatives, whether it's with the township or with the county, with our state representatives. I think there's advocacy on two fronts. Number one, locally for our property values, we need to protect the revenue that we're getting, okay? So although we want to support economic development, economic growth, we want to make sure that it's not at the risk of the school district losing money or losing the opportunity to get more money. We want to advocate to our representatives that on the state funding formula, that if there is substantial increases to that state line item budget for education, that we don't lose money. That there's something commensurate to this school district when the state injects more money into the education budget, okay? I think that is a major factor that not just the superintendent, myself, but with the board, with administrators, that people that know and understand that need to really relate that message to our legislators. I think that's really important, okay? I don't want them to think that they're increasing the education budget and we're getting something and we're not. So if it gets increased, we need to get something too, okay, with that. I guess that's my fair formula with it, to go at it. We need to keep looking for alternative revenue sources, okay? There needs to be things that supplement it, whether it's going out and applying for more grants or whatever, but more things to supplement our budget to it. That's why, and I'm glad you highlighted the donations, although those seem like they're small amounts, they are big, okay, to the district, to doing that. As we look at the budget for this year, again, the horizon that we look at just isn't a one-year annual budget, but it is coupling with that a 3 to 5 year spending plan. As time goes on and that gets more mature, you'll see that the district's ability to defer things or move things forward become a lot easier, because you're not just looking in a one-year horizon. You're looking at a spending plan that can be 3 to 5 years. You know, in your own households, it's easier if you can look over that horizon to pull or defer things, okay? Historically, local governments have just looked at 1 year at a time. So we're expanding that and broadening that out to do that. Again, probably the last note there is just keep monitoring how we're using the ESSER funds. That was a big injection into the school district, okay? And to make sure that as we spend that money, as we make that investment into people, programs, and different resources, that it is that our intent is coming out of that, okay? The results that we wanted really are coming out of that. So there's no huge change in the bottom line, okay? There's an increase in revenues, which is offset by the increase of expenses, mainly from accounting purposes of that state funding formula. But all in all, we're on track, kind of where we projected in November. We're on track as of today with that. Okay. And I kind of went through that kind of fast. I didn't go into a lot of detail, but any questions on that? To do that.
I don't have questions, I have a statement. Again, you made a statement about us attending the, our committee meeting that we did, and I will tell you, this is one area that I'm learning a lot. I had a thought when I came in, or joined the board, of what I thought this was looking like, and then I seen the numbers, and my mind is kind of opening up to this, and so I do appreciate the way that you're able to show this to me, and that's the message we need to get to the community, that we're not sitting on this money, and we have all of this money, and
Yeah.
so.
You know, to that point, the effort, you know, and I should have mentioned this because of what we need to do, the advocacy, it even continues with the community. There was a great question from the community to the superintendent at the last session, okay? And the question was, after they realized that we're in the bottom 6% of spending, the question is, well, why don't we spend more? How come we can't spend more? Well, we spend based on what we get, right? Okay, so what limits us of being in the 6% is the funding that we get, okay, whether it's locally or from the state, okay? And sometimes that's hard for people to understand, that we just can't go spend more.
Right.
We can't spend what we don't have.
Yeah.
Okay, to do that. So, you know, so putting that advocacy out there in the community is a good point too.
Yeah, so I do appreciate that. That's an area that I'm definitely learning a lot, so.
After 40 years, I still learn every day too, all right, so it's
I think it's eye-opening that they've shifted the responsibility from the state giving so much to it being, you know, mostly reliant on our local taxing, you know, our property owners.
Yeah.
And it's more important than ever that we continue on the transparency and sharing of information, because when it comes time for needing their support, I don't want that to be the first time that they've ever heard of our financing and, you know, all of that.
And speaking of that, again, that's why I wish more people and hope more people ask more questions, and we'll get a better understanding, because if you sit there and you assume something and you're not asking the questions, it's important, because again, my eyes have been opened, and you've just given me a snippet of some of it, so.
Yeah.
And 63% of our budget is reliant on our community to support that.
Yeah.
And that's just that's increased, because when I came onto the board in 2019, which is not that long ago, it was down closer, you know, in the low 50s, and it's, you know, it's catapulting forward, and Mr. Romano says that, you know, the new funding formula isn't fair, and, you know, what can we do as board members to help our community understand, to advocate? And, you know, I understand that, you know, you two are both going to the state level, but what can we do to help, you know, have our community be able to you know, write letters, or, you know, whatever it is?
Yeah.
Well, two things, we're working on just some talking points, so you have the similar, like, points that we have when we're talking with legislators. And we're also, building into our engagement process next year will be exercises that will help people break down and just kind of uncover and start to make sense of this for themselves. Because it takes like personal ahas sometimes to make it all click, and we just want to offer the same information we have. We want to make sure the community has. So we know it can be overwhelming in one breath, like tonight. We're going to keep doing it piece by piece. Is there anything else you would add?
No, I think that's it. Yeah. So there is item 9.02, which is the request, recommendation to approve the 5-year forecast as presented, and that would be the forecast itself plus the attached assumptions and notes with it.
For the recommendation, is there a motion?
So moved.
Okay, Mrs. Delaney is second.
Second.
Mr. Chumley, any discussion? Mr. Romano?
Mrs. Delaney?
Yes.
Mr. Chumley?
Yes.
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Mr. Rudy?
Yes.
Mrs. Brinkman?
Yes.
5 yes. And I'll let just 2 comments, I'll let that serve as my comments, treasurer's comments. Second thing, just want to congratulate Mrs. Brinkman. I know having 3 kids, grow up to adulthood, that having that last one go through, raising a child today isn't an easy thing. And getting them on through school and graduating and on to life after that, it takes a lot. So congratulations to you too.
Hopefully out of the house.
Okay, board comments, Mrs. Brinkman?
I just want to thank our staff for a great year. Thank you for everything that they've done to keep us afloat, making our students successful, and hopefully everyone will have a wonderful, wonderful summer and come back in the fall refreshed and ready to go again. Thank you for everything.
Mr. Chumley?
I love a group that celebrates its own, and we do it well and we do it often, and for good reason. We have great students here, a great community, but most of all, we have a great staff. And it's a scary time to have a great staff because everyone's trying to snipe you. So I'm demanding everyone stay still. Looking forward to Friday where we get to celebrate some more, so.
Mr. Patton?
So to piggyback on the sniping of the people, I hope that we're able to continue to come to work together to keep our staff, making sure that we can acquire additional staff and get where we need to be. I also, like Ms. Brinkman said, I do appreciate all of our current staff, and I'm glad that they enjoyed all of the festivities that they got to enjoy over the couple of days. Ms. Adams, I appreciate you taking your time to answer any of my questions. Our Monday morning calls if I need them, I appreciate that. Mr. Romano, again, I go back to thanking you for showing me that. Actually, you were correct, Ms. Adams kept saying, pay attention to this number. This is the number I want you to pay attention to, and so that got into my head there. So, but again, I do appreciate you taking the time to show me what that is, and I look forward to continue to learn that piece of it, because that's a huge piece when we're dealing with the schools is the financial piece. So I appreciate both of you guys with that.
Mrs. Delaney?
Congratulations to all of our volunteers that we recognize this evening. Those people make this district and all districts around the state do what they do best. And so if you're afraid to volunteer, don't be afraid. You can volunteer for 2 hours, you can volunteer for 2 weeks, you can volunteer for 2 decades. We need volunteers, and our staff appreciates it, the administration appreciates it. Our kids appreciate it, because they wouldn't get to do all the fun, cool things without those people. And they make a lot happen. To our staff, thank you for getting us to 3 days away. We've done so many amazing things, and it's because we have a staff from top to bottom that is so dedicated to our students, and it's a really proud thing to be a part of. I appreciate being on the other side. To our senior families, enjoy Friday night. Mrs. Brinkman, take a breath, cherish every moment as Spencer walks across that stage and all of his friends that
I'm
you.
gonna be tap dancing behind the scenes.
Yeah.
No crying.
You know, it's
Oh,
2
can't
hours
count on
and
that.
15 minutes, is that the, that you only get once sometime, and so cherish every moment. And our seniors absorb every single ounce of that night, because it might be the last time you see some of those people. It might be, you know, it's the door opening to the next chapter of your life, and appreciate that. And our community, please continue filling out those REACT surveys, because we have great things, and the more that feedback that we get, the better off we're gonna be, and we need to know what you feel, because it makes us better. So, happy end of the school year.
I'll just say I'm looking forward to Friday for 2 reasons. It's my last day at Bethel for the school year and for graduation. But I will miss the Spencer stories from the school, high school.
I'm sure
I'm
they'll still,
not.
I'm sure
I
they'll,
absolutely love Spencer.
I'm sure there'll
He's
still be
one of a
plenty of
kind.
stories.
Okay. We are going to go into executive session. Recommendation to withdraw to executive session for the purpose of considering the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, compensation of, or investigation of charges or complaints against a public employee. We do not anticipate, we will not have any action after the meeting. So I'm looking for a motion.
So moved.
Okay, Mr. Chumley, a second.
I'll second it.
Mr. Patton, thank you all for attending tonight.
Mr. Chumley.
Yes.
Mr. Patton.
Yes.
Mr. Rudy.
Yes.
Mrs. Delaney.
Yes.
Mrs. Brinkman.
Yes.
5 yes.